where they were and showed them the truth of the gospel, the good news. Trying to impart to them the truth of the word. But there's a problem that comes in between them and in between us today still. And that's the world. The world hates them because they don't belong to it. It hates the truth because the truth is hard and difficult. It's not easy. It's not quick. But it's time consuming. It requires commitment. It requires being steadfast and holding firm. But Christ tells his Father that I know all this is coming upon them. I'm not asking you to take them out of it, but to give them the strength to be in us and we in them, so that they can endure all that I've had to endure, so they can go through those same struggles, and yet still have hope and peace and joy and love in their hearts. Praying to keep them safe. Many times we'll pray for those that are in harm's way. But Christ here is not praying for that physical form. He's praying for a spirit to be kept safe. For them to be able to withstand all these things that Satan's going to throw at them to try to get them distracted. To try to get them to let go of that hope, of the promise, of the only thing that truly brings joy. And he sends them out. When he's on there at the cross, only one of his disciples, only one of the apostles comes to see him there. All the rest are scattered in fear. All the rest are uncertain about what the future holds. They're being tempted and tested. And we can feel that same way when the world throws its harm at us, when it throws hurt our way. Those that have been affected by the tornadoes up the Midlands. Those that were kept in captivity in Haiti, the missionaries. Thankfully, they were let go this week, and we're grateful for that. But so many around the world right now are in that harm's way. And yet they still are holding on to firm faith. They're still allowing God to work in their hearts to bring them joy, even in times of persecution, even in times that they might lose their lives. That's what this gift of salvation can do for us. It gives us a freedom from fear. It gives us a freedom from worry. As I said earlier, we've got a pastoral family in our district that is hurting right now from losing an unborn child right here at Christmas. Our family knows better than most how hard that can be. This time of year is hard on a lot of folks that lose loved ones, but sometimes it's all we can do to simply put on a happy face and try to be joyful. And the only way we can do that is by relying on Christ's strength. 13 years ago now, 14 years ago, because JJ is 13. We went through that same kind of thing at Christmas time. Angela was pregnant with Jonathan, and we didn't know that she also had another child that didn't exit that didn't come into the womb. And when it got so big, it almost killed both of them because it ruptured, caused internal bleeding. And ever since then, it's been hard to go through Christmas. So every year I'm reminded of how we lost that life. I'm also reminded that Christ tells us that He loves us. It tells us in the Scripture that even in the womb of the mother, that the child is known to God. So I know I'll be reunited one day. And that gives me hope. That gives me peace. And yes, it can even give me joy, because I know that when I'm in that presence of Christ, and in that presence of the child that we lost, that presence is going to be more joyful than I could ever have on this earth. And that lets me feel Christ's love. His love for me, His love for my wife, His love for our son, and His love for all those that go through that same kind of experience. Because we know who wins this fight. We know how the story ends in victory for Christ. But this world, it doesn't want to hear that. This past week we had family members that lost a loved one. And all I could do is be angry about what had happened. They looked at it as God's will being done. And that's not God's will for any that dies. That's the effect of sin in this world. He came to do away with that. He came to give us the gift of life and life eternal. But it takes us placing our trust and our faith in Him to recognize that this world is not all there is. That the things that we fill our time up here on this earth will all pass away with one day. But the things that Christ taught His disciples, the things that spoke to how His Spirit was one with the Father, those things that convince and convict and convert our hearts to accept that truth, that help us believe because of the testimony of time that has been preserved for us. We're still able to be that same kind of witness today, to help those who are hurting. Tonight they're going to be having an occasion down at Killearn UMC. It's called a Blue Christmas service. It's meant as a time of support and encouragement for those that have gone through these kinds of losses. To help them see the love of Christ is still reaching out to them, even though they're hurting. I encourage you, if you know of anyone that is hurting in that way, if you know of anyone that's had that kind of trauma in their past, encourage them to go to these services. Encourage them to seek help. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but it's a sign of strength. Christ wants us to seek out help, to come together as a body of believers and sharing our strength with each other, helping us to not lose sight of the hope and the peace and the joy and the love that he brought in that first Advent season. When we do that, when we become faithful and obedient, that serves as the proof that we have him living in us, that we are abiding in him. That's something bigger than any one church building. That's something bigger than any one nation. This is the unity of all believers, all those that have given their lives to Christ. And this is a prayer, if we believe the words of James, that the prayers of the righteous are effective and they are powerful and they are able to speak life and light into our lives today. So I encourage you this week, as we draw closer to that Christmas day, think not just about the things of this world, but think about the relationships with your family members. Think about those wrongs of the past that have kept you from interacting with each other. If Christ can forgive all those that have wronged him, if he could pray for those even on his way up to the cross and offer them words of comfort, I think he has the strength to give us that same kind of strength. To pray for those that persecute us, to love those that hate us, to reach out in comfort and compassion to those that misuse us. Because he loves us. He loves everyone in this world, the faithful and the rebellious. But when we are faithful, we're called to reach out to the rebellious. We're called to bring them into the fold. Not to lock them out, not to shut them out, but to witness to them. To reach out that love that we feel for Christ and one another. And when we do that, there's no better way to do it than to share that same story. That same journey of hope and love and peace and joy. And I think that's one we'll always be singing, with happy and glad tidings in our hearts. So let's close out this morning with page 156. I love to tell the story. Let us stand.
We would like to take this time to invite you to learn more about our churches by visiting us at calvarycharge.com or by following us on Facebook at Calvary Bethel Centennial. Remember that we are alive together in worship. As Ephesians 2:4-5 says, "But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved."